Hello children, how are you all? I hope you would have enjoyed my first educational video. It was about the lesson The Pickwick Club, and today I am here to teach you a poem, The Tragic Story, written by Adalbert von Chamisso. Let's start with the lesson, children. The Tragic Story is a German poem written by Adalbert von Chamisso, and it has been translated into English by William Makepeace Thackeray. Before learning the poem, let's know about Adalbert von Chamisso and William Makepeace Thackeray. Adalbert von Chamisso. Children, you must pronounce the name properly. It is Adalbert von Chamisso. The V should be pronounced like F, and it is not Camiso, it's Chamisso. Chamisso was born on 30th January in the year 1781. He was born in France, but his family had to move away from France and they had to settle in Germany during the French Revolution. Children, do you remember the years? French Revolution happened between 1789 and 1799. During those years, his family had to move away from France. Chamisso was a great poet and he also wrote many novels. His famous poetry collection is Fernlebe und Leben. He was also famous for his style. He mostly used satire. Children, I want you to learn what is a satire. Look at this picture, children. In this picture, there is a woman who is trying to rescue another person who is literally drowning into the mobile phone. This picture is actually an attack at the society. We people lose our time and sometimes lose our whole life by using social media and mobile phones. And this picture attacks that mistake in a humorous manner. So, a satire is an attack at a mistake committed by an individual or a society in a humorous form in a comical way. Keep this point in your mind, children, because today we are going to learn a poem which is also a satire. Now, let's have a glimpse about William Makepeace Thackeray. William Makepeace Thackeray was born on 18th July in the year 1811. He was born in British India. Though his parents were British, he was born in British India. British India, the time before Indian independence. His father was actually working under East India Company, so the whole family had to stay in India. He was born during that time. William Makepeace Thackeray wrote many poems and novels. Most of his poems and novels were based on historical events. His most famous works are Vanity Fair and The Luck of Barry Lyndon. Now, let's start with the poem, children. The Tragic Story is a poem about a sage. A sage is a person who is supposed to be wise. But here the sage is foolish and he fails very miserably. He fails sadly. And this poem is humorous and it is also satirical in tone. Children, I have tried to explain the poem by splitting the stanzas. The first stanza has been split into two parts. I'm going to explain the first two lines in this slide. Let me read the lines. There lived a sage in days of yore, and he a handsome pigtail wore. Children, I want you to underline the difficult terms. Underline the term sage. Sage, it means a very wise person. A sannyasi, a sadhu is called as a sage. Underline the term yore. It means long, long ago. Underline the term handsome. It means attractive or good looking. Underline this term pigtail. Look at the second picture, children. In the second picture, there is a man who wears pigtail. A pigtail is actually a plait worn at the back of the head, and it is plaited till the end. It looks exactly like a pig's tail. Now let me explain the lines, children. There lived a sage in days of yore. In days of yore, it means long, long ago. Once upon a time, there lived a sage, and he a handsome pigtail wore. He had a very beautiful pigtail, handsome pigtail, an attractive pigtail. The poet himself says that the pigtail is handsome, attractive. Then what would be the problem? Let's see, children. Now look at the next two lines of the poem. But wondered much and sorrowed more because it hung behind him. Children, underline the difficult terms. Wondered, it means thought. Sorrowed, it means felt sad. Hung. The word hung is the past form of hang. Hung means dangled. The pigtail was actually dangling in air. Now come back to the lines, children. The sage was actually wondering much. He was thinking so deeply, and he also felt sad about his pigtail. Why did he feel sad? Because it hung behind him. The reason was that the pigtail was hanging behind him, which means he wants the pigtail in front of him. Can you imagine it? How funny it would be? Look at the next two lines, children. He mused upon this curious case and swore he would change the pigtail's place. Underline the word mused. It means thought deeply. Underline the term curious, interesting. And underline he would. Here it means he would. And underline this word swore. S-W-O-R-E, swore. It means made a vow, made a promise. Swore is actually the past form of swear. Now come back to the lines, children. The sage was actually musing, thinking deeply about this interesting case. What is the interesting case? Curious case? The pigtail. The pigtail was hanging behind his head, but he wanted it to be hanging in front of him, above his face. So he made a promise. He swore he would change the pigtail's place. He promised that he is going to change the place, position of the pigtail. Look at the next two lines, children. And have it hanging at his face, not dangling there behind him. Underline the term dangling, moving here and there in air. So the sage decided to have it. It here refers to the pigtail. He decided that he is going to have it hanging at his face, not behind him, and he wants it to dangle at his face, not behind his head. Imagine, children, how funny it would be. Look at the picture and imagine if it happens in reality. Let's move to the next stanza, children. Children, did you notice we have completed two stanzas? Here, I'm not going to split the third stanza because it already has just 3 lines. Let me read it, children. Says he, the mystery I have found, I'll turn me round. He turned him round, but still it hung behind him. Underline the term mystery. It means something which is not known to us, like a hidden secret. Underline I have. It is the short form of I have. Underline I'll. It is the short form of I will. Let me explain the lines, children. Says he. He refers to the sage. The sage says that he has found the mystery. He has found the hidden secret. And he decides to turn himself round. He rotates himself. He turned it round, but still it hung behind him. The sage thought that if he turns himself round, the pigtail would come in front of him. But it didn't happen as he thought. It still hung behind him. The pigtail was still behind his head. How can that happen, children? If a man turns round, can his pigtail change its position? No, it can't happen. Now can you understand, children, what a foolish person this sage is? Let's move to the next stanza, children. Then round and round, out and in, all day the puzzled sage did spin. In vain, it mattered not a pin. The pigtail hung behind him. Underline the phrase out and in. It means forward and backward. Can you imagine, children? The sage was spinning in clockwise and in anti-clockwise directions. And all day, throughout the day, he was spinning, he was rotating. The poet describes him as the puzzled sage, puzzled, confused sage. Like a madman, he was rotating himself, but all in vain. Everything was useless. It mattered not a pin. There was no success. There was no good result. Still the pigtail was in the same position. It was hanging behind his head. All day, throughout the day, the sage was spinning. Now read the next stanza, children. And right and left and round about and up and down and in and out, he turned, but still the pigtail stout hung steadily behind him. Underline the term stout. It means stubbornly, adamantly. The pigtail was very stubborn. Let me explain the stanza, children. Now the sage has started rotating in all the directions. In right side, and he is rotating in his left side, and he is still rotating round about. He is jumping up, he is jumping down. Again he is rotating in and out, rotating in clockwise and in anti-clockwise directions. He turned and turned again and again, but still the pigtail was in the same position. But still the pigtail stout. Stout means adamant. The pigtail is very adamant, like an adamant child. It doesn't change its position. It is still hanging steadily behind his head. Children, isn't it funny how the pigtail can change its position? Children, isn't it funny? Can you lift a mountain and carry it? No. Likewise, he cannot change the pigtail's position just because he is rotating. Now let's move to the next stanza. And though his efforts never slack, and though he twist and twirl and tack, alas, still faithful to his back, the pigtail hangs behind him. Underline the term slack. It means to become weak. Underline the terms twist and twirl. Both the terms mean rotate. Underline the term tack. Fixed tightly to a place. Here, the pigtail is fixed tightly to a place. Fixed tightly to the sage's head. Underline the term alas. It means sadly, an expression of sadness. Underline the term faithful. It means truthful or close. Now let me explain the stanza. And though his efforts never slack, the sage's efforts never became weak. He continued to twist and twirl. And though he twist and twirl, he continued to rotate and tag. Still the pigtail was tacked, fixed to his head. Alas, still faithful to his back, the pigtail hangs behind him. The pigtail is faithful, very close to his back, not to his face. It is sad for the sage that the pigtail is still hanging behind his head. The pigtail is faithful to his back, not to his face. The pigtail does not obey the words or the actions of the sage. So it is correct, children, that the poet calls the pigtail as stout, adamant. Like an adamant child, the pigtail is fixed in its decision. And I think this is the funniest part, children. The sage, even after understanding that the pigtail can't be changed from its place, he continues to rotate and rotate, and he is never tired. His efforts never slack. He never stops his efforts. But at the end of this poem, we can understand that the sage is actually a foolish person. A sage must be very much wise. A sage must be intelligent enough to think about simple things. But here, this sage is a muddlehead, a foolish person. He can't even understand that he cannot change the hairdo just by rotating. So this is the end of the poem, children. Now let's move to the poetic devices. The first poetic device we're going to discuss is alliteration. What is alliteration? Alliteration is the usage of different words which start with the same letter, and these words can be seen in the same line of a poem. That's why the definition has been given like using different words starting with same letter in the same line of a poem. Look at the example, children. He mused upon this curious case. Look at these words, curious case. The words curious and case are different, but they start with the same letter C. So these words are alliterated. Another example. And swore he would change the pigtail's place. Underline pigtail's place. Pigtails and place or different words but starting with same consonant, same letter. So it is an alliteration. These words are alliterated. Look at the third example, children. And though he twist and twirl and tack. Underline the terms twist, twirl and tack. These three words are different, but they start with the same letter T. So these three words are alliterated. Let's move to the next poetic device, children. The next poetic device we're going to see is repetition. And this is very easy to understand, children. Repetition is the method of repeating a word, a phrase, sometimes even a whole sentence is repeated throughout the poem. This is done to bring an effect in a poem. There are two repetitions I would like to point out, children. The first one is, it hung behind him. This phrase is repeated in the poem in many places because the poet wants us to remember every now and then that the pigtail is still in the same position. It is hanging behind the head of the sage. The next repetition is round and round. Here the poet repeats the word round to emphasize that the sage is rotating himself again and again like a mad person. Children, the next thing we're gonna see is satire. Let's see how satire is used in this poem. Do you remember the comparison which I brought to you in the beginning of the video? A lady tries to rescue another person who is drowning inside a mobile. Look at the picture, children. I have given the same picture here also. I told you that satire has been used in this picture and that satire is the use of humor, comedy to attack a mistake. And in the same way, satire has been used in this poem also. In this poem, the poet is actually making fun at the sage. A sage must be a wise person, but here the sage is very ridiculous and foolish. And that's why this poem is also called as a satire. So children, if in exam they ask what is the tone of the poem, you can write either it is humorous in tone or you can also write satirical in tone. Children, the next thing is something you're already familiar with, rhyming words. What are rhyming words? Rhyming words are words with similar sound, especially at the end of the words, they sound similar. I have given you some examples. Your, were, more. These three are rhyming. Likewise, case, place, phase. They have similar sound at the end. Found, round. And some more examples are like about, out, stout, slack, tack, back. Last but not the least, we're gonna learn the rhyme scheme used in this poem. Some of you would have already learned what is a rhyme scheme. Still, I would like to give you a short introduction about rhyme scheme. Rhyme scheme is nothing but a pattern of rhyme, a pattern of rhyming words used at the end of each line in a poetry. And each and every rhyming word at the end of the line is given a label, a name. We must use the letters in the English alphabet to label. Here, look at the first stanza from the poem. Look at the last words in each line. Your, were, more, him. Remember children, Whenever you are marking the rhyme scheme, you must look at the last words. Here, the first three lines of the stanza have similar sound. Your, were, more. So, I'm gonna label them with the letter A, and the word him sounds different. So, I'm gonna label it with the next letter in the alphabet, B. Likewise, let's mark the rhyme scheme of the second stanza. Look at the last words of each line, children. Case, place, face, him. The first three lines have the words with similar sound. Case, place, face. So let's label them as C. Look at the last line and the last word in it, him. Do you remember? Already we have the word him in the first stanza and we have marked it as B. So we have to bring in the same label here. So we are going to mark him with the label B. So the second stanza also has the rhyme scheme just like the first stanza. So the first stanza has the rhyme scheme A, B. The second stanza has the rhyme scheme C, 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 B. Children, remember, you cannot use the same letter for all the lines to mark the rhyme scheme unless and until the sound is similar. Since the word him is repeated, we are using the same label for it. Now let's move to the next stanza. Look at the last words of the stanza. Found, round, him. I'm going to mark found and round with the letter D because these two are totally different sounds in the poem. And again you have him. Do you remember the label which we gave for him? B. So this stanza has the rhyme scheme D, D, B. Let's move to the next stanza. Look at the last words. In, spin, pin, him. In, spin, pin. I'm going to label it as E. And again, him has the label B. Look at the next stanza of the poem, children. Look at the last words. About, out, stout, him. I'm going to label the first three lines with F, F, F because already we have reached till E. So I'm marking about, out, stout with F. And in the last line, we have the word him. I hope you remember the label which we already gave for the word him, B. Again, I'm going to mark the word him with B. So this stanza has the rhyme scheme F, 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 B. Now let's mark the rhyme scheme for the last stanza. Look at the last words, children. Slack, tack, back, him. I'm going to label the first three lines with G. Slack, tack, back. They sound similar. So the first three lines have the label G. And look at the last line, children. Him. The word him is there. Again, I'm going to use the label B. So the last stanza of the poem has the rhyme scheme G, 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 B. Now, this is how you have to mark the rhyme scheme of a poem, children. However, one thing you have to keep in your mind, children. In exam, they may ask you to mark the rhyme scheme of any stanza. They may pick the second stanza or they may pick the last stanza. You don't have to worry about the label which we have given here. You can just like that start with A. Even if it is the last stanza from the poem, you can start labeling it with A. Keep this point in your mind, children. So, children, you don't have to memorize the rhyme scheme. It is more than enough if you know the rules or know the method to mark the rhyme scheme. With this, we have come to the end of the video, children. But one thing is pending. What is the takeaway? What is the moral that you grasp from this poem? The moral is that no one is perfect. In this poem, the sage, who is supposed to be wise, behaves like an insane man. He behaves like a fool. So, you cannot judge a person by their position or the title that they have. So, to prove yourself, you have to check your behavior. Here, the sage fails to behave like a sage. So, we can understand the moral that no one is perfect in this world, but we can aim to be perfect by checking our behavior every now and then. Thank you, children, for watching this video. I hope you all would have enjoyed learning the poem, and I want you children to go through the poem after watching this video, and I'm eagerly waiting to meet you through the next lesson. Bye, children.